Welcome to In the Room, where we explore the elusive world of casting for film, TV, and commercials. Join us as we interview directors, writers, producers, and actors, taking a deep dive into their experiences with casting and how the ultimate decisions are made in bringing a story to the screen. Get an inside look at casting and find out what really goes on in the room.
A freaky dancer.
My house got robbed.
What did they take?
My grandma's silver.
Did you call the authorities?
Yeah.
The world is bigger than your silverware. Grow up.
Everyone is an asshole. Taking my mind and fucking. Stop. Sometimes I feel like I'm underneath a whirlpool. Like I can't even breathe. The way people treat each other
Makes me so furious. Kevin, stop it! Is there anything I can do?
Open sesame. Gotcha.
Police!
Your son broke into my house.
I have no idea where he is.
Vigilante action's a good way to get your wig knocked off.
You have beautiful eyes, okay?
What do you want?
For people to not be assholes. I'm not letting you shoot anyone. Anyone else.
Hopefully we will be back at work. I'm not wearing a hat today, but I did bring my hat, my SAG-AFTRA hat. Represent. Today I'm just wearing a very high top knot because...
That's cute.
You are too, Kendra,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's fall and it's raining.
And it's, girl.
You know.
I have one on under my hat. You just can't see
We're
it.
just
but
pumping it up, girls. The higher the hair, the closer to God.
Right.
We are praying for money to come down from the sky. We got girls who are getting close to college and we need all the help we can get. Oh, please send us some jobs. Okay, but today we are very excited because we have Macon Blair in the room with us. Holy
Thank you, Macon.
How
my
did we
pleasure.
get so
I'm happy to be here.
So I'm going to dork out on him today. I can feel it. Ugh, I'm going to try to keep it together. Jesus. No one in this room knows. Probably nobody knows, actually. I Don't Feel at Home in This World is one of my favorite movies.
It's so good.
It's really,
Thank you.
I mean, it really is one of my favorite movies. I'm going to dork. Okay. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Macon Blair. He's a film director, producer, screenwriter, comic book writer, and an actor, and a damn good one. He starred in the film Blue Ruin, which blew my mind. It premiered at Cannes Directors Fortnight and was nominated for the Independent Spirit Awards John Cassavetes Award. In the film Green Room, he worked alongside the late Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots, Alia Shawkat, and Patrick Stewart. But when he wrote the script and took to the director's chair to create I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, a new range in his creative voice emerged. He painted incredible performances with such exciting casting like Melanie Lynskey, Elijah Wood, Robert Longstreet, and David Yao. It premiered at Sundance in 2017, went on to win the Grand Jury Prize, and Because You're Lucky still lives on Netflix today.
So if you haven't seen it, go watch.
Please go watch it. Oh my God. Okay, so my favorite way to always kick things off is to talk about exactly how Macon Blair began. So Macon, you're born in a hospital.
That clearly. Yeah.
I don't know, at home. Did your mom have you at home? I don't know. How did it all happen?
Alexandria Hospital, forceps on the head, super squashed cranium.
This is how
You went
that
all the way
happened.
back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, this is where all the goodness comes
Wow,
from.
when you saw the light.
settling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born with forceps too. Maybe that's how all the good creative genius happens.
Yeah. They squish all the good stuff up to the top.
Yeah. And so then what happens? Like what was When do you first remember, I don't know, just feeling like
this was it.
I want to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that very clearly. They would have on the local TV station, Channel 20, on the weekends, they would have old, like Universal monster movies, Frankenstein and Wolfman and stuff like that. My brothers and I were very interested in that, and so we would read up about like Lon Chaney and Jack Pierce and just sort of makeup oriented stuff, but sort of like, oh, these things that we're watching, they don't appear fully formed in the TV. There's people they're building makeup applications, or they're painting stuff on people's faces, and sort of just learning about the various crafts behind it. Just finding books at the library about that. And this was early 80s. So a little around that time is when we started to be able to get our hands on VHS cameras, and we could shoot our own stuff. And before that, we were shooting stuff on Super 8, but it was, you have to, it's very expensive. You have to send it out to get it processed. So we were making little claymation animated movies, but then all of a sudden it's on a tape and you can watch it right there. And so that sort of became just what we did with our free time all through junior high and high school, was on weekends go shoot movies with our friends. Jeremy Saunier was one of them, this little group of friends in the neighborhood. And we just came up together. We all moved to New York together and started making short films and writing scripts and just working on each other's stuff. And it took a while, but as you said, eventually, like, Blue Ruin was the one that got into festivals in such a way where we people would return our emails and call us back.
Right.
There was a long period before that, though, where we just, we would make stuff and a few people would see it and they'd be like, oh, it's okay. But, it was not like everything clicked all at once. There was a very slow, incremental process towards kind of getting our foot in the door that finally happened with that movie.
Do you remember a moment where you first thought, maybe I'm going to do this? Like, you made an official decision to, like, I'm going to do this with my life?
Or did you just always know? Like, like some people go, I've known since I was little. Like, I knew this was it.
Yeah, no, I knew I wanted to work in movies in one capacity or another. I put all of my eggs in the writing basket early on.
Okay.
And I would do the plays in school and I would act in Jeremy's movies and that kind of thing. But I kind of prioritized writing because Jeremy would cast me in his movies. I started acting that way and then started going in on auditions. I always had the idea that at some point I would direct my own stuff, but I kept kicking that can down the road. And it wasn't until we were shooting Green Room and the producers on that just asked coincidentally, like, are you planning on writing something for yourself to direct? And they kind of encouraged me to stop kicking the can down the road and be like, yeah, you can say, oh, it'll be in the future at some point, but at some point you have to actively be like, okay, I'll do that, which was sort of a scary leap. But I ended up working with them on that one.
When you were creating back then, do you think you were doing it from a story place, or was it like a world you were trying to create? Because you were describing, like, you seem like kind of a horror kid, and you were like, maybe you were creating worlds or like gore or those kind of things, or was it a story base, or were you interested in character? Like, were you?
It definitely started out more like in I mentioned that group of friends that would work together. It was all story was very, very secondary. We were interested in how to do squibs, and how to do how to hit somebody with a car and have it look cool, and like get the angles right. How to do miniatures, and it was more like effects driven. And we would have a story that was, the zombies are loose, or the cop has to get the drug dealers. Very basic stuff that was just scaffolding to do effects. So it was that. It was also laughs. It was just trying to like write jokes and have it be funny. But things like characterization or nuance or metaphor or all of that stuff came way later. The initial pull was definitely splatter and gags and that kind of thing for sure.
And so then when you got into Blue Ruin, so that was from your friend Jeremy, right?
Yeah. And so we had done a feature before that was largely self-financed. It cost like $200,000 to shoot. It was on standard def video. And it was like a horror comedy type thing. And it had a good festival run. It just didn't it didn't activate any careers, and everybody kind of went back to their day jobs. Jeremy was a DP, and I worked at a commercial library at an ad agency, that kind of thing. So Blue Ruin was sort of designed to have a little bit more of a genre edge to make it more sellable, but also very compressed in terms of budget. There was a Kickstarter that was about 10% of the budget, but most of it was Jeremy running up credit cards and mortgaging his house. And that was initially going to be, if people haven't seen it, it's a guy who's living alone on a beach, and you kind of learn that his life went askew when his parents were murdered, and the guy who's responsible is getting out of prison, and he kind of goes on a revenge mission. Initially, that was going to be a comedy where it was going to be more of a goofy beach bum kind of getting into shenanigans and, just more of a straight ahead broad comedy.
I can't even imagine a Blue Ruin version of that.
Because that
Which
is
was
not.
much more comfortable. I was like, yes, that
Wow.
at that time, everything that we did was, whether it was horror or it had guns in it or whatever, it was like
Comedy. Yeah.
And so that was it. And then at a certain point, Jeremy just changed. I remember this. We were working at his house, and he was like, I really want this to be more like a straightforward classical thriller.
Wow.
And I got very, very uncomfortable because the whole thing was kind of like, this is going to present Jeremy to be a director. This will present me to be an actor. We were kind of thinking about it like, this will be our foot. And I was like, man, if you're trying to make me be like an action star, we're in trouble, because people are not going to take this seriously. As like, I'm thinking he's imagining a Bruce Willis tough guy role. I was like, this is not going to be me. And he explained that that's totally the point, that the guy is going to be very out of his depth.
Yeah, it worked.
The whole point is he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not tough. He's not decisive.
So he was relatable.
Yeah.
Like we could all
I was like, you were able to use
there.
those nerves and create Dwight.
Yeah.
Because the whole time I literally was on edge with you going,
Yeah.
Like I remember halfway through I go, okay, I gotta pause because I'm scared for Dwight. Right?
Yeah.
But it's like you watch this, what's seemingly this nerdy little guy, shy guy. Who's like, I'm out for vengeance, and you want him to win, but you're like, oh my God, I was like, this is not.
There's no way it can end well.
It can't end well.
Exactly. There's a part where early on when it kind of turns and he stabs a tire to
the moment
thwart
the kid
the bad
said,
guys. Yeah, but the thing that Jeremy put in the script that it suddenly was like, oh shit, now I get it, was that he stabs the tire and ends up slicing his own hand very badly. And suddenly I was like, okay, he's going to do everything badly. He's going to fail at this mission.
He's not Bruce.
No.
Yeah. And suddenly that
made you feel better.
Okay, now that made sense. And we were able to settle into it with that point of view on it. Like, he's not doing a good job at.
Like, oh, I can do that. I can.
Yeah.
I can be a script a little bit.
Yeah. And the relatability helps.
Yeah, for sure.
But then enough sort of suspense and cat and mouse stuff, and to make it play as a thriller so that we could, market it that way and sell it that way. And because we got lucky and a programmer at the Fortnite responded to it, and it could have landed on somebody else's desk who was like not in the mood for it that day, or like, I'm just not interested in this kind of thing. Because it landed on that particular fella's desk, they talked it up before the festival, and so we had like an opening night that was very well attended, and it ended up selling that night because just people dug it, and it worked out. But that was sort of the fork in the road. It could very easily
That's
gone another way.
That kind of goes back. I don't remember one of the episodes. I don't know if it was the last or the one before maybe, where John even said during a casting, sometimes it just depends on your mood. Like actors come in and they think that they're, doing a bad job, but the casting director could be having a bad day. And it's like, oh my God, okay, next, and you like, oh, I bombed or whatever. He doesn't like me. And it has nothing to do with you that day. It's just, or it could be like, oh, everything's going great. And you guys like got that moment of greatness of, oh, this is pretty good. People should see this.
There's still very much a huge element of luck.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's so many, like, your performance being good or bad or the movie being good or bad is kind of low on the list of things that could go right or wrong to get it out there. It's luck is a huge part of it, timing, all of that. But yeah, we got very lucky.
Yep. So if we pivot to I don't feel at home in this world anymore because I'm chomping at the bit, I just want to tell a little bit about, without any spoilers, because everybody at home is going to go to Netflix and watch it if they know what's good for them. So it stars Melanie Lynskey. She plays a character called Ruth. And she's a nursing assistant. She's an average woman, and she comes home. She's been burgled, and it's legitimately scary. She lives alone. She tries to get help from the cops, and they're like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. You shouldn't have left your door unlocked. Kind of blames her. She walks up upon this guy who lives on her street. He's kind of intense character, but it turns out he's intense in all the right ways. And this is Tony, played by Elijah Wood. They're both beautifully human, and they just want justice and for the world to be good to each other. So they end up trying to get back what was stolen from her. They can see that her laptop is in this house on her mobile app. They find her grandmother's jewelry box, and each turn leads them to higher and higher stakes, making them stronger and stronger in their bond with each other and their strength in their convictions. And then shit goes crazy, and it's great. So, you write this film. Are you thinking about any of these particular actors when you're writing it, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I was thinking about Melanie for the lead and Elijah for her colleague, her little sidekick.
And are you thinking about them just because you've seen them, or do you know anything personally of them?
I definitely seen all of their stuff. I was kind of fascinated with Melanie going back to Heavenly Creatures, and but I think she had a more recent one called Away We Go, which I was kind of like, ooh, she would be great in this. And then Elijah, I just, he's Elijah. Everybody knows him. So, and he just had like this right kind of energy for those parts. And so it's not that I was like, this is definitely it, but I was definitely writing them with in mind. Out of some other characters in there that I knew people I wanted to cast for. But at this time, I didn't know if I was going to be able to make the movie at all. So it was all kind of theoretical. And we spent about a year trying to raise the money through traditional financing that's very tied to box office value, which is kind of murky, and you sort of know who's famous and who's not. But on the other hand, excuse me, I was being told that like Elijah Wood, and the budget was $1.5 million, I think. It was not huge. And they said Elijah Wood doesn't get that kind of money. And I was like, but if you're to box office value and the Lord of the Rings is like, what? And like, well, that's because it's Lord of the Rings. It's not because of Elijah. And it's like, oh, okay. So sometimes it's box office value, except for when the title is the draw, not the actor. So it was kind of confusing. But
so wait, that is confusing. So Elijah Wood's already been in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, I want Elijah Wood in my movie.
And they said the same thing for Melanie too. They were like, "It's not.
That's not bringing the same value from what they've been in."
No, and so we made offers to other actors, and it was one of those things where it was like I wanted them, but I was trying to be practical, and so we found other actors that I thought also who would have been great. It's kind of like whoever ends up in the movie usually is who's meant to be there. But
so with this, did you have to? Because you were trying to get the funding, did you have to make sacrifices and like mend a little bit or any adjustments, or
Well, no, what we did was we made offers to they had like lists of like, if you can get X, Y, and Z in the movie.
Who's they?
Various, there was Sony was one, Sony Pictures Classics was one, and some other.
So they present you with lists.
Yeah, it was like a back and forth. Like, what about this? And they're like, well, not this person or that person, but this person. So, and it's kind of like who's hot at the time. They were very interested, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but this is so far in the past. Hopefully, it doesn't matter.
Can I ask you about your feelings on that as the creator of this piece? How precious is that to you personally? Like,
well, on one level, it's precious, but on the other level, it's reality. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a bummer, but also it's kind of like I've never directed anything before, and if they're saying that they need these names to make their budget make sense, I may not like that, but I also don't have the leverage to be like, no, you're going to cast
That's
me
right.
or nothing.
I also have to say,
and so I was
adorable. You haven't directed anything before, and you're like Elijah Wood, Melanie Lynskeey. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you're like that's spoiled for choice. That's amazing to be like they're having these people. Like, the ones you're having to like choose from.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Yeah,
right.
It's kind of like, well, I would prefer that, but I'm really trying to make the movie. So we did make offers to other people who that they perceived to be big enough to justify the budget at that time. And had any of those people said yes, I think the movie would have been great. It would have been its own thing. It would have been different, but I would have been very grateful for that to work out too. But they all said no. And then what happened was we were at where was it? Oh, we went to Sundance with Green Room, Jeremy's second movie, and we had a meeting with Netflix. And at the time, this was 2015, I think. So I'm thinking like the guys with the envelopes, the red envelopes, and
right? It was
like,
still
all right.
Like lo-fi back then.
They had done Beasts of No Nation at that point, so they had done like one or two original things, but it was still kind of like streaming movies, like what? And and they were like, and this means like it won't be in theaters, it'll just be on streaming. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. But we went in and had a meeting with them, and they were very, very they had a mandate to generate their own material, and it seemed to be built on trusting the creative team that they put together. So the meeting, I had done a year of kind of like, who do you want? I really think Melanie Lynskeey would be great as Ruth. I don't know, Kristen Wiig or something. Again, all would have been great choices, but Melanie was not on the list. I go in to meet with Netflix. Melanie Lynskeey for Ruth? Like, oh, we love Melanie. That's great. Who else? And I was like, oh, shit.
So they
Elijah
were
Wood for Tony.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, well, we love Elijah Wood. What else? Mm-hmm. And then it just, they were so kind of like, that's great casting. Let's go ahead and reach out to them and see if they're available. And I was like, oh, shit.
Okay.
Like, what's your budget? Like 1.5. And they're like, is that enough?
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Wait, what's going on here? Like, it was very, very surreal. Like, it went from like, this movie is dead. We'd been trying for over a year. Nobody's interested. We can't get cast. We can't get the money. And all of a sudden, we met with 2 development executives at Netflix and had like a 30-minute meeting. Everybody high-fived, and we went out, and I called Melanie that night and was like, hey, you want to make this movie now? Because I had talked to her before, and then I had to make the awkward call about like, hey, casting this, casting that, we're going to have to go to other people. She was, of course, very professional and understanding. I'm sure it was not fun to hear, but she was like, I understand. But then a year after that, I got to call her back and be like, guess what? Things have changed, and we get to make the movie, and we're cool to make an offer to you. Same thing with Tony. And so it went in about a week from being totally dead to I was going to Oregon to start scouting locations.
Man, Netflix back in the day was like the reservoir
just to be
dogs
clear,
of like,
no, it blew my mind. Like I really
Swanberg had the same experience.
Yeah.
He was like, you're going to put money in a bank account and no script. I'm just going to deliver you a show. And they were like, okay.
Yeah. It was, I kept kind of waiting for some other shoe to drop or someone to show up on set or something. No, they were very, very supportive, and that kind of
trust the creator.
Yeah.
It was a really wild, positive, remarkable experience. I was really blown away. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going to say, but just to be clear, so initially you're going the Hollywood route.
Yeah.
You had to do traditional auditions. Like, did you get to that point?
No. It was all like it was offer only for the Ruth and Tony part. So it was, we would have if we had gotten somebody on board, but the whole thing was it needed to be triggered by somebody on their approved list saying yes and getting on board. So no auditions until we did it the next Netflix version.
The Netflix one.
Yeah, and then we cast some of the larger roles from Los Angeles, and then the majority of them from Oregon, where we shot. Portland.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how was your experience? Okay, you got your 2 leads.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you're going through the whole casting process. Did you do the typical through agents were you doing in-person auditions? Were you doing...
It was tapes mostly.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I lived here at the time, and we were looking at people from New York and LA. And so we got tapes. We were working with a really great casting director named Mark Bennett, who I've continued to work with. I just love him. And then there was a local casting director named Simon Max Hill in Oregon, and he helped us out with the local role, more like roles that would be in like 1 or 2 scenes. But there's a gang of bad guys, the burglars, that they contend with, and we pulled them from Los Angeles and a couple of more of the larger roles from there. And yeah, it was just tapes. I had a couple of people that I really wanted. One, my wife is a great actor named Lee Eddy, and there was a role in there that I was just kind of like, I'm not even really going to audition for that because she's just going to play that. But then there was another one, the leader of the bad guys.
You should have made her audition.
Well, see, I was just kind of like, let's work together. It'll be great.
She doesn't mean self-tape. I've seen some of it.
No, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the leader of the bad guys I had written for a guy named David Yao.
Okay. Can we just spend a little time and talk about that?
We can spend the whole show talking about that.
Because what? Okay, David Yao, he's a musician.
Yes.
Lead singer, right? Scratch Acid, Jesus Lizard.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. How does this happen? You know him?
I do now. Now he's my buddy. Now he comes over and stays. That's the thing that's so
How does this happen?
Yeah. Exactly. So if I'm thinking about myself as an 18 or a 19-year-old and
this
I'm
blows your mind.
Obsessed with the Jesus Lizard, like obsessed with them. They were sort of like a post-punk band from the late 80s, early 90s, if you don't know them. Tremendous live act. And he had this very deranged, entertaining, strange stage persona that was just completely unhinged, but also kind of funny. So it sort of had this half hilarious, half threatening sort of vibe. And I was really thinking about that for this character, where he's menacing and evil, but also kind of a goofball. And that was just one of those things where I was like, I don't even know if he's really that into acting or what. That was more just, I had him in mind as I was writing. Not that it would necessarily be him.
Yeah.
But I was like, what do I have to lose by reaching out to him? So I did. Never heard back. But then finally, what I said was, I would love for you to read for this movie that I'm writing. And I guess I had the wrong email address. And so like a month later, he calls me. I was in the grocery store and he's like, hey, this is David. I'm playing Marshall in your movie. And I was like, I didn't mean to imply that you're already in the movie. I meant, would you audition? And so there was something the lines got crossed. So he did audition and it was great. And we got him in. But that was another one where, going back to the Netflix thing, where I was kind of like, I bet they're going to want an actor with some kind of like visibility as an actor, as opposed to like, I'm going to cast a rock and roll guy. He had done some indie movies by that point, but he was definitely more well known as a musician, as a rock and roller. But again, they were like, oh, okay, cool. And then
how'd you audition him?
We just over whatever the equivalent of Zoom was at that time.
Really?
Remotely. Yeah. And
what did you make him do?
We just read some scenes.
You did?
Yeah. And I played the other characters and he played it there, and then I showed the tape to Netflix, and they're like, "Yep, good to go." And it helps that he looks like that character.
Yeah,
like he is a very sweet, kind guy in real life, but he can look kind of menacing and threatening. So that definitely helped. But yeah, got him in the movie, and then I'm standing there, and then it's just kind of like, I was very obsessed, like most of the world, with the Lord of the Rings movies, and then there's from Heavenly Creatures, there's Melanie, and then there's David from there's all these people that like 10 years ago I was just like, wow, these dudes are rad, and now we're here working on a project together, and then we've remained buddies since then. We've got a text thread still going, like checking in on each other's birthdays and stuff like that.
Okay, and then is it Christine Woods?
Yeah.
Can we please talk about this performance?
Yeah.
Has anyone talked about this performance?
She killed
fucking
it.
fantastic.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Like, I want that to win something. I mean, that woman.
Yeah.
From the minute she opens the door, I'm like, oh God, I know this person. Like a hot mess.
That was an audition, actually.
Oh,
that
okay.
like I became aware of her other work subsequently, but at the time she was completely out of nowhere. Never was not aware of her at all, and was just kind of like, whoa, like her. I'm sure you guys know, but sometimes there's like auditions that are like, oh, I good interpretation of the character, or like it doesn't totally work for me. But every now and again, there's one where you're just kind of like, where the fuck did that come from? And it was one of those where
I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah.
But I was like, of course, this is who this woman would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's remarkable. She was like this.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Kind of like, what I liked about it was that she was like playing, she's for folks that haven't seen it, she's the stepmother of one of the burglars that stole from Ruth, and so they go to kind of confront her about like her stepkid's behavior, and it just sort of like goes off on tangents. But what I loved about it was that she played it like she was sort of a day drunk ditz,
right?
And yet she was actually a lot smart. I mean, like the character was a lot
everything
smarter
that's going on.
Yeah.
Right. And so she had this sort of like, I'm playing it kind of drunk and ditzy as armor, but she was actually kind of the smartest one in the room.
It is the armor.
Yeah.
It's because she does know everything that's going on.
Yep.
And
That
she's
she
just
has
like,
to be that way.
She gets overlooked as the ditzy housewife that doesn't do anything, but
she's just like, honey, if you had to be in the room with what I have to be in the room with all the time,
yeah.
you would be drinking this too.
So she's actually, and this is, what was fun about it was that was like a break in her routine. Like she's normally by herself in the house, and then she has these two unqualified weirdos showing up demanding justice, and she's like, I can't give you justice, but this will be a fun little break in my afternoon. Like
I can make a
I was bored.
I was bored, and this is gonna liven up my day. What do you have to tell me? So yeah, she was a lot of fun to work with too. And then also her husband is Robert Longstreet.
Can we just talk about Robert Long? I mean, we've talked about him before in Ping Pong Summer, and anything he decides to do, I'm the biggest fan. He's incredible. Scares the shit out of me in this movie.
Yeah.
Just standing there, because another guy I know.
The president.
I know this guy.
He just gives that
He's just so scary in his stillness.
Yeah,
right?
he just stares at you. I had checked out his audition was also great, and Jeremy had worked with him on a Mike Tully movie called Septian. And this
had
was
you seen him before?
Yeah, many years ago, and Jeremy was the one that was like, you need to keep your eye on this guy Longstreet.
Seriously.
Jeremy was the director of photography on Tully's movie Septian, and Robert was like the second or the third lead in that. But I even before I saw that movie, I remember Jeremy came home from shooting that movie, and I was like, how'd it go? He was like, pretty good. There's this dude in this movie.
It's about right.
Seriously, and he was like, just like, we need to find something to do with him. And that was probably 8 or 9 years before that happened. But it's one of those things where like people do something great in another capacity and they want to bring him back.
He has that quality.
I'll tell you another one. The third member of that gang in Don't Feel at Home was Jane Levy.
Levy.
Yes.
And
I was going to say, I loved her performance.
So one of my main regrets for that movie is like, I wish when I saw that coming together that I had gone back, and I don't know how it would have worked with the schedule, but if I could just flip a switch and make it so, to have given her more material to do, because she was sort of like a sidekick bad guy, but she was so creepy and compelling that like, I was like, oh shit, I should have given her an extra scene or something like that. But the reason she was there was because she had auditioned for Green Room for Imogen's character, and she was like the tight second choice.
Okay.
Like if Emmy had not been available, it would have been Jane, but her audition was that good. So again, it's one of those things where, to your point, where at that time, you know, she didn't get that role, and that's a bummer, but there's definitely people watching that and paying attention, and just because that one didn't work out, she kind of went on the short list of like, when if something else comes up, make sure she's in the mix.
Yeah.
So,
and whoever did the wardrobe on your film and put Robert Longstreet in that linen suit, can we can we get some kind of award for that?
Yeah,
because
that was a nice. The zipper deliberately down.
So perfect and like terrifying in that way. If you've ever been in a family of, you know, the topless bar industry and all those guys.
I'll just say I have.
Yeah, she has.
Those are the guys that are scary. The ones in the linen suits. Okay. I mean, and you know, going back to, I don't know what I'm saying, just Melanie Lynskey, her quality in this movie.
I don't think I've seen any movie that she's in that I don't like.
I mean, facts.
She's always great.
But it's just like, I mean, I think she's also so perfectly cast for the quality that you bring to the movie, which is you have this way of what I love about it, which is capturing a truth and a realness that, you know, I think a lot of movies, you know, we're telling a truth, but in a heightened reality. But if you can somehow carry over the truth and the realness of it within that heightened reality, that's what maintains it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that so brilliantly, especially throughout this film.
I don't do it at all. No, they
must,
did it.
though.
Not really.
In your storytelling, you do, though, because also you choose in the moment of like when it's just zeros and ones. You wrote, "I'm going to need a credit card." That brings it back to the reality of it. You know,
I see what you're saying.
Any other director, writer would have just let it be, this is the moment when they're just getting the license plate number and it's the zeros and ones. No, but you bring it back to the reality of, you know, you take it the step further to know, well, he's not just going to get it that way. I mean, he's just going to do a search for a driver's license like we just would. Anybody would. Yeah. There's nothing extra special here. He's just going to Google a driver's license number thing, and then he's probably going to need a credit card to just, you know,
he can't pay for it.
Whatever.
Himself.
He's not like a psycho.
It's like, wait, I'm helping, but this is your thing. So
no, not even just that it's her thing, but just that he's not like doing some Matrix shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. He's just doing something that we would. He's finding a government site where you can find a thing.
Well, that's
right?
Well, the whole thing was sort of. I mean, not that I was like, I have to tell this story. I wanted to do a crime story that had a not so much a love story, like a platonic love story within it, right? Mm-hmm. But a comedy crime story with that sort of vibe, and it came indirectly from when I lived in New York and my apartment got burgled, and the police did come and they did a little bit of performative fingerprint dusting, and then they were like, "That's pretty much
all we can do.
That's all we're gonna do here," and that was fine. I didn't expect anything to happen, but as you're kind of cleaning up the broken glass and stuff, it is very easy to think like, well, what would I do?
Yeah.
You're not going to do, I'm not going to, I don't know what anybody else is going to do. Of course, I'm not going to do that, but it's fun to think about. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what it came from. Like, how would you, a non-detective, a non-secret agent, just a regular doofus, how would they solve a crime? The first stop would probably, they would go to Google.
Yeah.
Who did the crime?
Yeah. So you follow that, but you still keep it in reality, right? Like even with like, and I think that's what makes it, your villains and your bad guys are so scary. And like like at the end of the day, it's like, I find it hard to like really be super scared by the bad guys in movies, because I'm like, they're the bad guys or whatever. Your guys are so scary to me, and I think it's
realistic. Like, you feel
everything's
so
super
connected.
Realistic.
Yeah, when you're
like
watching.
when she hits him with that thing, it's like that's really what would happen, because that's really what she hit him with. Mm-hmm. And then when, you know, what happens next happens, that's really what would happen, because those, you know what I mean? It's not like, it doesn't go that next step further where it gets Hollywoodized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, these are the real injuries that would happen because these are the things that are injuring these people.
For sure. And on some level, I'm sure I was, and not on some level, on very clearly I was influenced by the way that Jeremy was approaching genre stuff in Blue Ruin, which is to say, like, a revenge movie that is characterized by those types of mistakes, or you show up to like confront the bad guy and give your big speech and then nobody's home, and then now you make a sandwich and you sit around and wait and it's awkward and boring, and those are the types of sort of detours that it sort of makes that. I mean, first of all, it helps on a budget because you know you're not going to get by on car chases and fireballs and VFX, so the entertainment value comes from, in theory anyway, the kind of unexpected reveals or whatever that hopefully people are like, oh yeah, that rings true. That's like, I would stub my toe at that moment, or I would not have the cool line on the tip of my tongue, or whatever. So it's you know, in the way that he was sort of applying that sort of mistake driven concept to a revenge movie, I was probably doing a version of that to a detective movie, let's say.
But I think that's what I love about it here, is because that's what keeps us invested in the ultimate message of this movie, which is a very human one.
Right. We could see ourselves in that piece, like you're
Hopefully
saying.
so, yeah.
You know, it's like the everyday woman who's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm tired of everyone brushing me off, and then the cops doing what they do.
Yeah.
You know, protect and serve. But you know what I mean? And it's like, really, I have to go home and just be like, okay with this? No, it's like she finally gets that courage to say, you know, screw this.
She's I'm
done. Yeah. And I'm just going to have to take things into my own hands, which a lot of women do. Maybe not to that extent, like you're saying, not necessarily I'm going to go hunt these people down because, you know, the world is scary at times. But, you know, there comes to that point in your life that you're like, I'm done. I have had enough.
I mean, it's super like fantasy fulfillment. I mean, for sure.
And I was like, yes, Melanie, go
when she's storming out of that, you know, police station, and she's got that look on her face.
You knew.
Like, I don't know what Tony's listening to in the car, but it's got me pumped.
That's
like,
yeah.
It's like, let's go.
That's my friend Melanie from college. She's a singer now. Yeah,
so
put her song in there.
I mean,
yeah, no, it's like that was I think part of why I was really excited and had this idea for Melanie is I didn't know, but from having seen her, there's a shot in Heavenly Creatures where it's like, if you haven't seen that, it's sort of based on a true story about two girls that kill one of their parents, and they have this sort of strange friendship that culminates in this terrible murder. But there's a shot of her walking down this hallway and she's getting ready to do this evil thing, and she just has this really intense, furious look on her face. And I think she was like 14 or 15 when she shot this, but it always stuck with me. And a lot of things that I saw her in since then, you know, she was in 2.5 Men, and she was sort of like a kooky neighbor and stuff like that. But
it's always a sweet girl role,
something like that, or at best, if she was like in the Cinderella movie where she was sort of like an evil sister. But that white hot rage from that shot in Heavenly Creatures was kind of like, I wanted to sort of see that in this context, and I thought that would be a fun thing for her to do. And hopefully it was. But,
yeah, she did it.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, speaking of cops, let's not overlook Gary Anthony Williams, right?
Oh yes, he was so good,
freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
How did you get him?
That was a straight up audition, and we had Mark Bennett brought him in, as I'm sort of like going back in my mind now, but he was just one where it was sort of like, what I liked was that he is a comedy guy. I think he's from the Groundlings.
Oh, really?
And is very funny, but in the same way that I was sort of like, oh, Melanie's sort of like sweet and kooky. Usually, wouldn't it be cool to make her full of rage in this one? He was very funny, and some of his stuff hopefully is funny when he has these conversations with Melanie and they are kind of coming at it from different points of view. But having him play it very straight and just sort of like his version of a gruff cop. And that's what he did. And so that's kind of why he stood out to me, is that he didn't play it for comedy. He played it very like downplayed and quiet, which to me made it funnier, because ultimately like he gets in these weird conversations with Melanie where he's revealing too much about his personal life. And that sort of, it works better if he's like kind of a gruff by the book guy initially. So you're kind of like, oh, this is uncomfortable. But no, he was very sweet.
So when you say they were straight auditions, were they in the room or were they all taped because you were here?
It was all taped. Yeah, it was all taped. I don't think I did a single one in the room.
Did you book them all straight off tape, or did you do callbacks as well?
Heather has a feeling about taped auditions, just so you know.
Oh, like that they're better or worse?
Oh no, they're worse. I feel very passionate about it. But,
from whose point of view?
That's okay. From my point of view.
As the person that's doing the audition? Because I would rather do a tape every single time.
You rather do tape than in person?
Shit, yeah. Absolutely.
As an actor or as a...
as
an
director?
actor.
As an actor?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because you have the opportunity to do your own...
Does Macon have anxiety?
Right.
Oh, let me tell you about, I auditioned. Oh boy, listen. I was in New York for a long time. I went on so many auditions. I booked nothing. And I still have nightmares about, it was an episode of Law and Order. Do you know the director, Tom DiCillo? He did Box of Moonlight.
Was Law and Order bad to Macon?
Law and Order was fine. Macon was bad to Macon. What happened was I didn't realize he was. This is a director who I really loved his movies. I didn't realize he was the director of this episode. And I went in and I saw him there. And like a complete bozo, I completely blanked. And not just did it wrong, but like could not recall the words at all. And then I was kind of sputtering, and I turned to him and I was like, I'm so sorry. I love Box of Moonlight. It's one of my favorite movies of all. The worst thing you could possibly do. And he turns to the casting director while I ran. He goes, oh, he's nervous. And I was like, oh. And I went home and was just sort of like, I forget where I was going with this story. But ever since then,
What's his name? What's his name?
Tom DiCillo.
Tom DiCillo.
Great director. And
Is he though? Is he?
No. He was, listen.
Do I need to have a meeting with him?
Am
I coming for him?
Humiliated.
Tom?
And you were,
Tom.
this was years ago, like you were young.
Oh yeah, I was probably.
Okay, bye.
I was like,
I mean, I know, but you know, when you're super young, sometimes you can't control.
This man here.
I tried to.
He's fine. Tom, listen, sir. With all due respect,
he was right.
Do not make me come over there.
With all due respect, I was wasting their time because I blew it. My point is,
you're
I have the opportunity to be safe in my little make a tape.
Right.
I understand there is the kind of like they want to like see if you can take direction and that's great. I'm just saying if I have the option and I can do like, oh wait, hold on, let me make a different choice here, or let me make a different choice here, and then
I agree with that.
have a couple
I'm
of
here
choices.
For that.
Because I can't go in there and be like, let me do 5 versions of it because I couldn't remember it the first time. They're like, no, motherfucker, I got stuff.
I love that too. I love that. If I'm supposed to be eating a bowl of soup, girl will go get and make a bowl of soup and eat it in my audition. I will set dress. I will do all that all day long when I have time. These days, they don't give you the time. They don't give you the things. And all of a sudden, I am a Macon and I am a John and I am a you know, I got to be sound. I got to be lights. I got to be a filmmaker and an editor and an, DT and whatever else. It's a lot to ask.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I
Sometimes
can't focus on my performance and just be an actor creating this thing. I got to do all that stuff too. And then I got to find a reader.
Yeah.
And then I got to put the dogs up. And it's like, I got to take time off work.
Make a good point.
Then I got to sit there and watch myself over and over again and choose the takes. And I don't like that. I don't want to do that.
I know, but a counterpoint
you
to that
could
is you got to
probably
sit outside the room and listen to 10 other people
else.
doing the same
I hate
shit.
that.
Yeah.
No, that's what headphones are for.
It's
I hide in the corner and I go la 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 until they call me.
to her point, she's right. There are times I've gotten auditions. I'm like, really? They want me to do all of this?
You're like, I can't do all that right now.
How am I supposed to do all of that? You don't need all of that to know if I'm the right person for this, is what I've thought. And I know, talking to other actor friends, they're like, oh my God, this is just so much. But
it's like, and then you got to make
to your point, yes,
choices.
you have the opportunity when you're not quite like, sure, okay, nope, that wasn't the take.
Yeah.
But then to be able to go in person, which, as we know, if you haven't figured out, that is her preference.
Sure.
And I think majority of actors' preferences sometimes, because it's like you do get that opportunity to just go in there. You get to feel the energy of the room, and then you get to just give it your all, and then you walk away, you're done. Like, I don't need to stress. I did the best I could. I gave them what I thought. Hopefully I took the direction the way that they wanted me to take the adjustment of these directions. And if I book it, great. If I don't, on to the next, right? It's like you're able to just release it.
That's
versus
true.
I got, like she's saying, I got to go do this. I have to edit. I got to do this. Now I'm like, dang, did I send the right take?
Girl.
So
Here's the thing, I'll tell you, I'm a weirdo, okay? There's no doubt. I'm a weirdo because I don't want to go in person. I don't.
But
I don't.
You're not making sense now. Now you're contradicting.
I told you I'm a weirdo. I don't want to drive out to the red building and go in person. I'm nervous. I don't like it.
Are you nervous
but
now
I
because
know
it's been
that
so long?
it's better. I know that it's better.
Okay.
I know that it's better to
The lesser
exchange
two
that
evils,
energy.
you'd rather
I know
go in
that it's
person.
better to have that energy if I can get past my nerves, and that's what takes the tchotchkes or whatever they're called. That's what. If I can exchange that human energy with someone, it's better. I know that.
Okay, so make it on the other side, from the director's point of view.
Yeah.
When you're watching.
Yeah, tape or in person.
At that time, I was very happy that I was sort of like, there was a lot of people that were auditioning. So it was delightful. Yeah, from a director's standpoint, being in person would be better, for sure. It just wasn't, I couldn't go to California and then also to New York, because again, it was sort of, there was a window for shooting, and we got the go ahead to go just a couple of weeks out from when so the casting happened very, very quickly. And the only way to sort of like look at people from all these places was to do it remotely while I was still here. So in a perfect world, I agree, it would be better to, from my point of view, to get to hang out with people in the room. In that case, it wasn't possible, but it's okay.
It worked out.
Yeah, I feel very lucky.
I don't want to like not acknowledge the fact and congratulate you on your latest Toxic Avenger.
Thank you.
Thanks. So in the casting on that was just, I looked into it. Of course, I haven't seen it yet, but I was like, this makes me want to kind of geek out and be like a comic nerd. I only know, as the little sister, the stuff my brother used to watch, and I had no choice. I wasn't allowed to change TV, so I know what I know because we were the human remote. You had to go turn the, we had this floor TV, turn the top one, and just stop right there. And if it wasn't my older brother, it was my uncle.
We had one that was a slide.
Oh, the slide?
Way back in the day. Did you ever have that one?
I had the kind that were like, it had like 10 buttons across, and then you would click it up to get the next level. That was like the old cable, like click, click, click.
Yeah. Ours was like a white kind of box. It was flat, had like a faux wood thing on top, and this little, and you would click, 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 click up the slide, like 10.
I kind of
as well
I remember
as the
that.
crank ones.
Yeah,
like
I think I
this.
remember that. I don't know if you said something about what you have to. I don't know if I know that one.
It was like it was the 80s cable box.
Yeah.
Like it was like a gear shift. You had to engage
It was like
the
a gear
clutch
shift.
and
You're
fucking.
You and I are almost the same age.
Yeah, I know, you're right.
I'm
74. You're almost going to be 50, huh?
almost.
Or are you 50? When is your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah.
Happy early birthday.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday to you.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Macon.
I'm turning.
Happy birthday to you.
I'm dying slowly.
Don't die. Welcome to the club.
Well, yeah, but that has to feel great. Just from,
Yeah.
starting at, I don't feel at home in this world anymore to now.
No, it's insane.
Is
It's
this
absolutely insane.
is this only your second film directing?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. So
Right,
I gotta
that's
ask
why I
a
was like, I
question.
have to
gotta
bring
ask a
this up.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a weird question. So how do you go into your internal confidence level of being like, okay, I write these things and I cast these people, I work in this way, to now I'm gonna pitch something for Peter Dinklage, or is there, there has to be a moment where you're like, I'm nervous.
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like, where do you feel like you make a shift to being like, I'm, I guess, not worthy, but like I'm on a next plane where it's okay for me to
because I treat it like an acting job.
Yeah,
okay.
right? Like you just kind of psych yourself out and say like,
Yeah. No, I mean, like I know what I know what I am going to be asking them for. I know what the tone I'm pitching. I sort of know what I want to do. But yeah, it's daunting to go to these like bigger people and
Big
try to be like,
meetings and
trust
stuff.
me. But
Yeah.
especially for this one, which you'll see is very, especially on the script, like you could read the script and be like, wow, this is a dumb fucking movie. Like, are you aware how stupid this is? And then I have to kind of be like, guys, here's the thing. We know it's dumb. It's kind of dumb on purpose. It's got like an airplane or Naked Gun kind of vibe. It's not a superhero movie in that sense. It's more of a comedy, and walk them through that. But with Peter Dinklage, he saw Don't Feel at Home at a film festival, and he very kindly invited me out to lunch and just wanted to say like, hey, I like the movie. And then we what he shouldn't have done was he gave me his phone number, and this was right when Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, when Game of Thrones was wrapping up. And so every Sunday night,
you were blowing him
I'd
up
get
at
a
like
couple
2
of
a.m.
beers and like, are you going to be on the Iron Throne? Very funny. But then when we had this, there was already a relationship in place. So it was not like I was coming up out of nowhere. It was, he had sent a couple of scripts to me to read, and I had sent some other stuff to him to read. So there was a bit of a back and forth. That made it easier. And then Elijah's in it, David Yao is in it, Lee is in it. I wrote roles specifically for them to play.
Who's making it?
What's that?
Like who's making it? Like
Toxie?
Yeah.
Legendary. They do largely. You know, I mean, they did Dune.
Like, so do you have to go to them?
They
pitch
came.
it?
No, they came to me, and they had gotten the rights, and they were going to do a version of it, and they were going out to many people, I assume, and they asked me what my take on it would be, and
So they just called you.
Yeah.
well, they had seen the other movie, and they had read some stuff that I had written, and I had done some additional dialogue writing on one of the Godzilla movies for hire. So I kind of knew them a little bit, and they I was just on the list of people that they were asking about, and so I wrote a pitch and had a couple of meetings and kind of explained what my take on it would be, which was largely what I just said to you, like treat it as a comedy and sort of embrace the silliness of it. It's absurd on the face of itself. The guy's like fighting crime with a mop, and he's wearing a tutu, and it's sort of like the absurdity is part of the fun.
Your boys are gonna love it.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of Toxic shit all over the house. When can we see Toxic?
They're
Like,
gonna
not
love
yet. But so yeah, it came about because of that, and I got to Mark Bennett got to cast that as well.
Yeah.
The local casting was a little different because we shot it in Bulgaria. So
wow,
that was a different, it's.
So how do you do that?
Well, we got a local casting director there. The thing is though, is that like the theater scene there, we shot it in Sofia, Bulgaria, and the theater scene is huge. It's most of the actors there make their living in theater.
On stage.
No kidding.
Yeah, and so doing movies
I need to go back
is
to
kind
Maybe
of
we
like
should move.
a lesser thing. There was a lot of people that we auditioned, and we were like, "You're great, can you do it?" And they were like, "No, I've got to play." And we were kind of like had this faulty presumption that like, oh, they would want to do, and they're like, no, because if you sign up for the movie, that's one day of work. The play is sort of like I'm guaranteed 3 months or whatever. It's and that's their thing. And so we got some really great actors, but the pool is a lot smaller. But we found good folks locally. Had a great local casting director.
How was that tricky shooting in Bulgaria for you?
I mean, it was tricky being away from. I've got 2 small kids, and they were in school, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Being overseas for that amount of time, it was also at the height of whatever this Delta COVID, the second wave.
Oh, right.
So there was a lot of kind of like, it was very fraught, and they were really tight with precautions. Nobody got sick, but it was like a constant thing. So the trickiness was all that kind of thing. As far as actually making the movie there, it was great. The Legendary had done a lot of stuff there. The crews are super pro. So it like, that part was fine. It was just sort of this, separation from family and sort of dealing with COVID stuff in the midst of all of it. That was the tricky part, not the not the crew.
Yeah.
I saw a little snippet. Lee's in it, right?
Yeah, she's
So far, she's batting 1,000.
I was
right?
like,
Is that what that
I was
means?
going
like,
through.
She's doing
Yeah.
good.
I was like,
she's in
Lee's
everything.
Lee's in that. Keep it in the family. That's what you're talking.
She was in Killers of the Flower Moon too.
I'm just saying, like I saw like every connection. I was like, that's what I need to find a writer director husband.
There you go, girl.
Well, she just directed her first short as well, which is like it's done with post now, but
Is
hopefully
it
be coming out soon.
Oh, that's fun.
Tuscan's birthday?
Yeah, it was based on a stage show that she did.
Is fantastic. I can't wait for it to come out.
Super funny.
I saw the live version.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
One woman show. She's incredibly funny. Any chance you get to see Lay Eddie perform anything, please run out and do so.
It's true.
So did you have anything go wrong with casting
Yeah.
for your don't live at home and don't feel at home in this world anymore? It
Well,
just seems like it all went great.
That went great.
I mean,
There was another. So I had a second movie that was all lined up, and right on the heels of that one coming out was set to go. And it was one of those things where, we were going to shoot it in Atlanta. We had Luke Wilson and Tracy Morgan were going to be in it. And then it fell apart like a week before shooting started. There was a thing with money, and it just fell apart. So it was one of those kind of like, yes, Don't Feel at Home was sort of like, what happened? Everything went right. It was,
and you got to make it your own.
we got to do our own thing. Everybody clicked. There was no shitheads
It
on
kinda
set.
felt like it,
Everybody
too.
was like, it was like summer camp. Had a great time. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what
Yeah.
It was a
This is
really
movie making.
Right.
it was a bummer, but it was a really good kind of like come back down to earth sort of moment where it went right from that movie into this next one, and then that totally blew up. And then it took many, many years for another one to come together. I mean, COVID delayed everything, but also it was just sort of like going all the way back to zero and starting again. So it's not like everything totally fell into place. It's just that like the stuff that went up in flames,
Wow.
nobody's heard about. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's the
Do you
stuff we
think-
don't really talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think you'll ever try to get that one off the ground again?
I hope so. Actually, I was talking to the producers about it, and enough time has passed that I think we might. It's just at that time that would have been like 2016, so the budget's going to be totally different. So
Yeah.
therefore the casting requirements are probably going to be different. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like a starting back
Yeah.
from scratch if it does happen, but I don't know. We'll
And
see.
now we have new contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel over the years like that your relationships with casting directors, whether from acting to directing, has like evolved or changed for the better, or how do you see that shift happen for you over time?
I hope so. I feel like I think I might have shot myself in the foot a little bit, because what happened was there was this whole time sort of in between Don't Feel at Home and Toxie starting, in the middle of what the other movie was called The Shitheads. And so in the middle of which sort of dealing with that. And during this whole time, some of the casting directors that I had sort of known a little bit, they would reach out to me about auditions for stuff. And I would just, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to do it because I was focusing on this one movie, which ultimately fell apart. And then this other movie that we were holding space for, knowing that I was going to have to go to Bulgaria. And so because I didn't want to be like, yeah, I'll audition for something, even though I know, or I'm putting my eggs in this directing basket that I won't be able to. I didn't want to waste anybody's time by like auditioning for something, and then on the off chance I get the role, being like, nah, never mind, I'm not going to do it. Which I know happens all the time. It just didn't. I didn't feel right doing that. I just didn't want to waste people's time.
I feel like that might have been a smart thing then, because I think it would have been worse to book a role and then, I've heard it so many times from, now we got to rush and try to recast.
Exactly.
Right. So,
yeah. And so I didn't want to do that. I did at one time. I was in a situation where I did do that, where I got cast in something, and then because of a schedule thing, I pulled out of it, and I don't think that helped me in that relationship. So I try to not do that, but as a result of being like he's not available, he's not available, he's not available. Like I don't audition as much anymore. I don't get I will submit for stuff or I'll email people or whatever, but it's not going the other way as much, which is okay. I'm not complaining. I sort of just chose to go in that direction. But when I do get hired for stuff, I feel very lucky still. So
you don't feel
what,
like rusty, or like maybe it's not?
I guess it sort of depends. I don't think it's not rusty. It's just sort of like wanting to be sure that I can do a good job with what they're asking for. And there's been some other things where even if I am available, I was just sort of like, I don't think I'm going to do a good job with this for whatever. And I'm trying to think of an example so I can clarify what I'm talking about. But it's, like, oh, okay. So like I auditioned for Mindhunter.
Okay. Yeah.
The Holt McCallany part.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean? And I was just kind of like, all right, like, yeah, it's David Fincher. I should probably do this. But then I was like, and then I saw the show and I was like, oh, what the fuck was I doing? Like, no. Yeah. And so now I'm very kind of like, trying, and it's maybe not a good practice to get into, but sort of second guessing like what the ultimate product is going to look like with me in it. Yeah. And me as the tent role and Mindhunter.
It's
Stink
okay
City, man. No way.
Yeah.
Too,
I think if you're
it's
aware.
not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
You can have self-awareness without it being like some sort of insecurity or something.
Yeah.
Like
it just comes back to like if I think I can do a good job. Because the other thing too is like there's life stuff, and it's sort of like can I go after something that's going to mean I'm going to be gone for 6 months? Yes. And so I do try to keep different things in the air. So I'll try to do for hire writing work because I can be at home and I can take the kids to school and I can pick them up. If I'm going to get something that's going to take me away for a long time, like I kind of have to be a little, not that I have to be a little choosy about it just because like I don't have unlimited time.
You have to prioritize.
Yeah.
Work-life balance is important.
Yeah, totally. And so like if I can do stuff locally or around home or for shorter periods of time, that's great. Writing, you do have to travel for meetings and stuff, but for the most part, you can do that from home. So I try to sort of do the jigsaw puzzle that way and sort of pick and choose.
Do you have a preference, like a first love?
It's whatever the thing I didn't do right before.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Awesome.
Like right now, I really want to. I would love to go audition and be in something, and then when I'm done with that, I'm like, oh, now I just want to sit by myself and write something,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm like, now I want to, it's kind of like whatever itch hasn't been scratched the most recently is the one I want to do. They're all, it's sort of like control, time, like some are two. It's like you can get two, but not three. I'm not doing a good job of explaining that, but you know what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
It's kind of like if I want control about like my vision, then I would go try and direct something, but then you're committed to something for probably 2 or more years and that's all you're doing.
And it's like sometimes you need that. Now you need to step back, decompress, and let someone else take the reins. And now I can perform.
Yeah, it's also really nice to then on the heels of that to be like, I don't have to get in the scouting van at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to make these decisions. If it goes wrong, it's not my fault. They tell me where to stand. They tell me what to say. They tell me what to wear, and I do that, and then I can go home, and that's very fulfilling in its own way. But it's just sort of like you're kind of being told what to do, and then there's the other version where you have to give those answers to everybody, and it's fulfilling in a different way, and there's pressure in a different way, but it's just they're different things. So I guess
Well, we do have to wrap up pretty soon.
I have one more question.
We have taken up a lot of your time.
I know.
Yes,
Thank you.
We do have to. I do want to say a few more things too. Yeah,
I'll
go.
just say one more. On your wish list,
Yeah.
who would you like to work with in the future?
Wow.
That's a toughie.
Do you know?
On the spot, there's so many people. Oh my gosh.
I bet. I can, because honestly, I think about this too, and I have people on my list too.
Well, who's on your list?
I would love to work with Angela Bassett.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Viola Davis.
Great.
There are a lot of people.
One of my favorite movies of all time, and one that I totally robbed from for Don't Feel at Home, was Out of Sight. And that was the first time I saw her, and she just came out of the screen, and her whole thing about, you know, her dog getting run over and everything. It's such a great scene, but it was just, I was like, who the fuck is that? Yeah, she's incredible. Oh gosh, I don't know.
You have any, Heather?
He's on.
Right?
Oh, well, that's one.
Yeah.
I want to work with you.
You know what I will say? That's very kind of you. For starters, thank you.
Smart.
What I like to do is if I have, and so far I've been lucky that I have, if I have a good experience with somebody, then I tend to just be like, fuck it, I just want to work with them again.
Yeah.
So I'm
same.
not trying to get out of your question,
No,
but
I
it's
get
just
it.
kind of like,
No, it's true.
I had such a good time
Same.
on that first movie. I was like, well, now I want to put something for Elijah and I want to put something for David in. It's just sort of like, you know, I would love to work with Melanie again. All those people. It's just sort of like, if it's not broke, then don't
fix
fix it. So I kind of just want to like keep bringing the same squad back together. It just, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I was texting with your Texas Chainsaw buddy Lee Turgeson the other day because yeah, there was a random something about Oz on the internet, and I saw it and it made me think of him, and I still have his number, so we texted a little bit and said hi. So.
Okay, well, here's a random.
Small world.
I was in a show called Longmire, and Devin Gray played my son.
Really?
Yes. And the whole episode revolved around a long time ago, I was raped and I became pregnant. And he was my son.
Wow.
And when he grew up, he found out who his father was and he killed him. And he buried him in my compost pile.
My God.
And then the sheriff come arrested him and took him to jail, and it was all very tear-jerking, and it was really, but Devin and I spent 2.5 weeks in New Mexico, had a wonderful time.
I love that, dude.
Filming that together. And the next thing I know, you know, a year later maybe, he was like, I'm coming to Texas for South by. I want to see you. And I can't remember what was going on, but I never ran into him. And then it was like a year later when, I don't know, it was a rough time for me then. I didn't make the South by, and things were happening that weren't so good. And I was, you know, just alone with my laptop, and I was hearing good things about the movie, and I was like, oh, I'm going to check this out. And also I was drawn to it because, you know, I said I was a weirdo, and it's true. My husband and I are kind of like normal functioning civilian weirdos, where like one of the things we bonded on long ago when we were really young was there's a weird band called His Name's Alive. I don't know if you've ever heard them, but they had a song called I Can't Live at Home, and actually it's the cover of the gospel song I Can't Live at Home in This World Anymore. But they wrote a lot of creepy music, and he used to play that, and so it pinged me when, you know, the title of your movie, and I watched the movie and I was just like, oh, wow, it really hit me hard. I was really affected by your movie. And it takes a lot. I'm really I have a weird funny bone. It's hard to make me laugh. And I'm really picky about what I like. And I really, really liked it. And then Devin comes on the screen and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this is that movie he was in at South by. What?
Oh,
I was like, I can't believe it. And he was so fucking scary in your movie. And I was just like, oh, Devin, he's so good. He's so good. I don't doubt that he killed the audition, and that's why
That's exactly what it
movie.
was. No, he was dynamite. And
he's a fantastic writer. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, in the hotel at the end of our shoot days, we used to watch, I turned him on to The Killing. I don't know if you ever saw that TV show.
I didn't watch it. I know it's talking
Oh, it was so good.
Okay.
He and I used to watch The Killing together at night, and it was so good. And then, you know, he's just a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
He's really, really good. And so, yeah, I'm just singing his praises. I love you, Devin Gray.
Me too, Devin.
And I miss you. We love you.
You're so good, Devin. I don't know you, but I loved you in this movie.
See, you're so good.
Change the title to the Devin Gray.
The Devin Gray Show. This is the Devin Gray Podcast Hour. Thank you for tuning in. But yeah. So anyway, and on that note, that's not your lawn tiger.
Thank you all very much for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Really,
My pleasure.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was nice talking to you.
All right, guys, go watch the movie.
Good to see you.
Bye. Our show today was recorded in studio by the good folks at Record ATX. Check them out at recordatx.com. Our theme music is produced by Jonathan Price. You can check out some of the sounds he makes with his project, The Mid-Cities, on Spotify. Follow, subscribe, and smash that like button if you see one. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.